So today we've got our winemaking team together to taste through the Sauvignon Blancs for 2009. These wines have now all finished their fermentation, and this is our first opportunity to look at all the various tanks from all the different vineyards to get an idea of the style and the quality for the vintage. And then the winemakers can make their decisions in terms of blending and putting our different wines together for the different brands.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, I just had 24 wines, so I'm a bit retarded this afternoon. Although I must say it was a very exciting tasting, having looked at, compared to the previous vintage, 08 vintage, I think there's dramatic improvement. Especially on the mid-palate, I found all the wines had nice definition and focus, underpinned with a racy acidity, most of them, and I think most of the acidities were natural this year. They were all natural, which is indicative of a cool harvest or vintage as we've had. And I liked the finish there, the minerality, but it was offset with nice texture of fruit around all the palates. The noses were, I think, quite expressive, although not opulent. I don't think they were overbearing at this stage, which is also a very good indication these wines have the ability to mature, because with that structure they have, the noses will carry, I think in the future you'll see them definitely improving. If I look through my scorecard, we were grading the wines in A, Bs and Cs, and there are very few C's on my page. I pick up 1, 2 or 3 C's out of 24 wines, 3 or 4 C's, which is a really good average. I don't know how you found it, Anthony.
No, I think Charles has sort of covered all the bases there. I agree with him. I think it was quite a nice tasting, and the wines showed nice character, nice depth. I really liked some of the old vine stuff that came through, a nice palate richness. So I think we've got a couple of really nice base wines to build to get things going nicely. Yeah, I agree with you. I also had very few C's, mostly A's and B's. Overall quite happy.
So what would be sort of the next step from here? The wines obviously will spend a little bit more time on the lees and just.
I think this is the kind of vintage that if we can, we should certainly try and leave things on its lees as long as possible. And I think even if we are blending and don't need to bottle everything, the part we're not bottling should also stay on the lees. And even if we rack it off the main lees, we'll still keep it on the fine lees. So I don't think it was rushed to clean up the wines.
And Charles, how do you think your vineyards at Darling are starting to look now?
Definitely, it's a cool vintage, all natural acid, and still, again, I think we have to go back and taste again some of the brands and do rebranding, and as Anthony and Charles said, need to be patient. I think definitely these ones are going to evolve and develop beautifully in the future.
I think another thing just to add to what Charles said, I think this year we got a bit of a shock last year, what dramatic influence. We always knew that viticultural practices could play, and Darling being a relatively new area for us, we only got to grips with it I think over the last 2 years. And this vintage, I think one can see where more skillful manipulation in the vineyard, knowing what the dangers are, is manifested itself in I think in a much higher quality profile. The big question, of course, is if Robin's going to be able to market this in America. And we're very happy to have Robin with us today, which gives him insight into how much effort goes in behind the scenes, which he doesn't always necessarily come into contact with. So Robin, what is your impression of first time around tasting with us and getting an idea?
No, I really enjoyed the tasting. It was a very nice learning experience for me, seeing the wines. I normally see them as finished wines rather than at this stage. But again, I got very few C's, I got mostly B's and a few A's. I was very impressed with the wines, and I'm looking forward to selling them in the US. I think they're going to do well. I think we're going to be able to really show, especially the Americans, what South African can do with Sauvignon Blanc.